have to do this, people. This is urgent. Now, I want to get to you, Zach. Freddie Alex was killed videotaping, which has become critical in these protests and in watching illegal arrests, abductions, police brutality, ICE brutality. He was videotaping. You've been documenting this also. Will you tell people what you've been documenting and what do you see that's different than what we see in the major media coverage of this fight?
Well, what I see is that there has been there are dozens of I make a distinction between journalists and citizen journalists. I believe that either you're a journalist or you're not, but you can commit acts of journalism. And just like a lot of people that are on the ground. Excuse me. A lot of people that are on the that are living in Minneapolis, they don't like to be called activists, but they're committing acts of activism. It is not their full-time job. They're not they're not organizing in the way that like Move On or they're not activists in that way, but they're committing acts of activism. They're just normal citizens who are trying to keep their community together, and basically because they still have to keep their community together when Donald Trump's vision, his Eye of Sauron goes to the next city, whether it be Chicago, whether it be New York, whether it be Baltimore or wherever, and it's going to do that soon. Bavino is out as head, and unfortunately, Tom Homan. I've written about Tom Homan. You can read about his depravity and his anti-Semitic and racist beliefs at bc.news, my newsletter. Unfortunately, he's coming in, and I don't think it's going to be any better, but it does give us a sign that maybe the Minneapolis are starting to win in the fact that, the fact that his very short, his very short, dear commander that is on the ground, he is being kicked out. So, at least that's hopefully a sign that, there's going to be a compromise, there's going to be something moving forward, or worse, that they're going to move to another city. But what I've seen on the ground is people documenting and taking into their own hands because, they learn Minneapolis is the place, where we really, really learn the power of having a cell phone video camera, with 4K resolution in your pocket. When that young woman documented the murder of George Floyd, and had a moment of journalism where she committed an act of journalism. And
yes,
people are doing that on the ground now en masse because they know that any moment could turn. You watch the video that happened before Alex Pretty's murder, and you go, well, this isn't going to turn into anything. It's just going to be another time they push people away, they knock them to the ground, they do whatever, they clear the scene. I had no idea when I started to watch that video that was going to turn into a crime scene.
My mind.
Turn into evidence in a criminal act, in a murder. And so that's what the importance of everyone on the ground. Everybody has their cell phone out. It's always interesting trying to interview people. I was live with Status Quo and try to interview people and be like, hey, do you mind if we jump on your live stream for a minute while we talk? Because everybody is constantly doing it. And usually that annoys me as a as a photographer and a journalist, where I'm like, okay, everybody can't do this. But I think it's so important in this town because everybody doesn't have their camera on at all times. And unfortunately, we cannot believe a dang thing that this administration says. That has been long provable. And the mainstream media is still somehow just reciting what we call the propaganda of, reciting, well, there was a ICE-involved shooting. It was like, no, we can watch the video, and we know exactly what it was. We know who shot the person. We know why they did it. We have 3 different angles of it, just like we did with Renee Good. We knew who the murderer was, who the perpetrator was, immediately. There's not a question. But still, you read, I think the New York Times is getting a little bit better on this, but so many of the mainstream media out there. Well, I remember seeing CBS News on the ground. They had a security guard. They ran with a 6-person team and everything like that. And what they did is they just walked across the front line. the DHS troops crossed and started harassing the protesters who were on the other side at the Whipple Federal Building, and they walked across the line, did their little talk about, this is what's going on in the ground here, and then immediately left. They spent 5 minutes on the ground and get the heck out of there, and that was their story. That was their big story on the ground. The brave CBS journalists doing the propaganda that their boss Barry Weiss wants them to do, and people on the ground know that, and people on the ground know what's happening.
Yeah, and before we move beyond that, I just want to do a shout out to Don Lemon, and I just have to, because he's been following, and DOJ once again tried to put this man in jail for doing coverage of one of the protests that happened to end at a church where they really asked that minister, who is part of ICE, how can he preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and be part of this cruelty, this inhumanity? So a shout out to Don Lemon. Daryl, let's get back. Ariel, we got some more questions for you. Go ahead, Daryl.
Zack, as you were speaking about the national broadcasting and the way that they are really parroting what the talking points that the administration wants to say, one of the big things that I'd like you to comment on is that, you're in an interesting position because, you're part of the media world, but you're also part of connecting to the community that's on the ground. There's an issue of public trust that goes into all of this. There's public trust that folks have got to be able to believe what they read in the newspaper, what they see coming from the news. The same as with the prosecutor, right? The one thing that the prosecutor focuses on, and I'm a former prosecutor, you've got to be certain that you always have the trust of the people so that they believe and understand what you're saying. What happens, Zack, with situations that you're speaking of now where major media, large media, mass media is losing the public trust? Are they losing the public trust in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, and around the country?
I think they've totally lost it. I think that, I don't know if it's regainable. I think that people turn to, the papers of record. I would say, actually, national media, they've lost it. Local media, the Minneapolis Trib, and those reporters work their butts off. They get the best photos. I'm always angry as a photographer when I see that, I think Richard, I'm trying to remember Richard's last name, that they get the shot every single time, and they get it out, and they tell the story the way it should be told, in my view, obviously, from a journalist perspective. But what I think, one thing I saw, this was my first time on the ground working in front of the camera, working for Status Quo, a live stream operation, independent, tiny crew of like 5 or 6 people running this whole thing, getting hundreds of thousands of views. And I was walking down random streets, and people would come up to me and go, "Oh my God, Status Quo!" And that's very unnerving because people usually getting up in front of me and noticing who I am. Usually that means I might get my butt kicked because of what I cover. So what I think is that people are turning towards the media, that they see people asking questions and interviewing people on the ground, asking questions, sometimes pushing back if they say, what if they say something, that I know is not true. And I think that that's what people want, is they want people that show that they're on the ground. They're not parachuting in. Mind you, I was only there for a week, but Status Quo has been there for, I think, 2 months now. One of our videographers got frostbite on 2 of his fingers, lost a fingernail. We all have damages, health damages that we've acquired. They know that we're on the front lines. And that's not something you see with, obviously I always want to emphasize photographers and videographers are there, even at the New York Times or whatever. But the reporters don't seem to be actually witnessing the same thing that the photographers are photographing. You pull a video and you can watch a murder happen, and somehow the reporters or the editor's, reporter is saying, well, it's unsure what happened. And it's like, well, I can see where the gun is, and then that's when the shots start firing. And so I think that when people have to call what they see with their own eyes, that's what journalism is that they're separating that line between people that do that and people that go, well, the administration says this, and this is what you can see in the video. It's 2 superb things.
Before we're in our last minutes, can you tell Zack how people can reach you, please?
You can reach me at ZD Roberts on all social media. That's Zack Donald Roberts, ZD Roberts. And go to vistu.news, VISU.news. That's the full website. That's my newsletter, where you can read my most recent piece where I talked about how the Trump administration is ransoming data, trying to get the data for voter rolls from Minnesota so that they can commit another cross-check.
Wow. Yes, that's precisely what they're up to. Thank you. Yep. Daryl, for Ariel, the same question. How do people get in touch with you? We are in our final minutes of the show.
Sure. So I just put out a piece in Common Dreams about my experience here, kind of my reflections from the ground here, and I'm also working on a piece about the comparisons between my time here and the times I've spent in the West Bank, and you'll be able to find both of those on my social media, which is my full name, Ariel, Ariel, Elise, Elyse, Gold, Gold.
You are amazing. Your courage is wonderful. Just as quickly as you can say it in 30 seconds, what do you want to say to all the religious community? Because you've been out there as a faith leader. Faith leaders have been arrested. Faith leaders have been putting their bodies between the protesters and ICE. Faith leaders have been throwing ICE out of churches, out of schools. Faith leaders, tell us quickly in 30 seconds what you got to say to other faith leaders around the country.
So in one of the Jewish prayer books, there's a saying in there that says, prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits. It may not bring water to parched fields, but it can water an arid soul. So that's the main thing that we're here to do, is to support the folks that are on the front lines, those local folks here. And I really believe that, like Selma in 1965, Minnesota today has become this generation's front line in the struggle for freedom and justice. And if we stay disciplined and caring in our prayerful response, then we're going to win this.
Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And folks, please, big thanks to Representative Ron Reynolds in Texas. Big thanks to Faith Leader Ariel Gold. Big thanks to Zack Roberts for being with us today and bringing us that information about what's happening in Minneapolis today. Folks, be certain that you call 202-224-3121. Tell the Senate to not give another dime to the ICE budget, to Homeland Security. No more money for ICE. No more money for ICE. Folks, until next Tuesday, noon, Eastern Standard Time, get off the sidewalks, get into the streets, get into some good trouble, and stand up for your neighbors. Peace, everybody.
Peace.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Urban One Incorporated, Radio One, or any of its subsidiary companies.
The preceding program was paid for by Barbara Arnwine.
Agnes was in deep trouble with the IRS.
I owed the IRS a lot of money.
She found out about Optima Tax Relief.
They guaranteed me that they were going to help me out the best that they can, and they did.
Optima stopped the IRS.
Optima Tax took care of everything.
Are you in deep trouble with the IRS? You might want to listen to Agnes.
I would refer Optima Tax Relief to anyone.
Call Optima right now for your free consultation. Call 800-811-7033. 800-811-7033.
Optima Tax Relief.
For details, visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Standing at the edge of a rocky shore, you breathe in the cool, salty air, watching the sun disappear on the horizon. Across the globe, someone begins their day along a sandy beach, listening to the rhythm of the crashing waves. You each envision a world beneath the water, vibrant life in every imaginable form. Now, imagine it's all gone. What was once a place of wonder and beauty is now a dull, lifeless wasteland. Food, jobs, medicine, all gifts from the ocean, all gone. Time is running out to protect our oceans, And without our love, everything the oceans provide can and will disappear. It's our choice. Love it or lose it. Help protect our